Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Talking with the Experts.
In episode 449, Yvette Durazo shares with us the missing piece to turbocharge conscious leaders and organisations' emotional intelligence.
Yes, and just to give you a brief, what are the type of organizations that I have worked with? You know, I have worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations because, again, well-meaning people get together to work in organizations, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're not seeing eye to eye. It could be executive directors, right? Executive directors in an organization, C-suite people that are working all together that don't see eye to eye. And a lot of companies, you know, have gone away or have closed because partners don't get along. They figure it out a way how to divide the assets, the investments, the money. They go out and redact a legal contract of how they're going to work together, but they never figure it out an MOU of how is it that they will work together when things don't move well.
Talking with the Experts.
Hello, welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Today, my guest is Yvette Durazo, and she is from Unity Consulting. And we're going to be talking about conflict intelligence quotient. So it's obviously a program that Yvette has up and going, and we're going to be discussing how that works and how it will benefit your business. Now, Yvette is a specialist workplace conflict management consultant, and she is what you might call a chief civility officer, and she is the expert that companies or businesses need to go to get help to create a harmonious workplace. Yvette is the author of the book Conflict Intelligence and the missing piece to turbocharge leaders and organisations' emotional intelligence. She is the principal consultant of Unity Consulting, a workplace organisational effective strategic conflict management and leadership development firm. She brings innovative techniques to promote a positive workplace culture in organisations to encourage trust, productive human capital engagement and inclusion. Clients benefit from her wealth of knowledge and professional experience in the art of building a trusting workplace relationship. Some of her services include training, mediation conflict in the workplace, anti-bullying, settlement negotiations, developing dispute system design, and bringing unique strategies to address the diversity, equity, and inclusion to the workplace. Yvette, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to Talking with the Experts today.
Thank you so much for inviting me with your audience. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Wonderful. How did you start doing what you're doing? What was your background from before you started your business?
Well, I think I was already doing this since I was born. I was born in a family of 7 children, and as you can imagine, I had to negotiate and do conflict resolution since I was very little, because although that I was the youngest of 7, somehow as I was growing up, my siblings will get into fights, and I would be always the peace builder. little that I figured out that when I was looking for a master's degree, I was looking for a master's degree in business and an MBA. And at that time, when I was looking for this master's degree, I was pointed out by a coworker of mine that there was this master's degree in negotiation and conflict management. When I read the description of it, I really liked the description. I thought, this is what I can do best. I also had worked a lot with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and the other thing that I would notice in those organizations, that although that they were well-meaning people wanting to do good in the community, the internal board of directors, the staff were always in constant, discussions, having issues, not seeing things eye to eye, and then the mission and the vision of the organization would not be elevated, would not be developed. So because of that, and because I'm very passionate working with the community, I said, these are the skill sets that I think that if I learned, I will be able to be more effective when I'm working for organizations. And then I went and did my master's degree. And at the same time, I thought, you know what? I have done coaching myself. I was coached by someone years ago, and I was very impacted by the coaching. And I said, somehow I feel that the coaching and this master's degree will bound very well. And actually it did. So that is how it all started. I went in, I did a master's degree in that area of negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building. In the field of study, it's called alternative dispute resolution, which is helping individuals resolve conflict without going into legal proceed, or without even going into lawyers or legal counsel. So with that, I fell in love with the degree, and I after I finished my degree, I said, you know what, I would like to build my consulting business on this. I always saw myself doing my own business, and I said, this is something that I can bring to organizations in order to help to create civility, to create better workplace environments. And by that time, I had already dealt with bullying in the workplace myself, micromanagement, cliques in the workplace. And I said, well, not only am I book smart about this subject, but I also went through my own experiences. Therefore, I think that I could be very good in helping organizations. And then an entire almost decade and some more years, I put my hands on any book that I could, trainings that I could. I went through a lot of, not only one, but a lot of mediation certificate programs, because at the same time, I was also offered the opportunity to teach at National University. And I became an instructor there for the Alternative Dispute Resolution Certificate Program. And I was teaching these courses in 2012. At this time, I'm teaching on 3 universities: Portland State University, UC, which is a University of California in Santa Cruz Extension, and then University of UC Davis, University of California in Davis. So because of that, not only I knew that I wanted to learn as much as I could, because then I had my responsibility training the new generation of conflict resolution specialists, right? And that's how it all started. In 2012, I started my business, and now almost 12 years after.
Wow, that's an amazing journey from, childhood up till now. It's you're very knowledgeable, obviously, to be able to tutor and train at some different universities. So well done and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So your book, tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yes. As the years passed and I was working with people and professionals, somehow, I would receive these comments about the way that I was helping them to become more comfortable in dealing with high-stake conversation, difficult conversations, and people would mention this. They would say, "Wow, this is like a mini course that you're teaching me here," or "Wow, this is very interesting information. I have never come across anything like that. I have gone to conflict resolution classes and 1 hour, 2 hour classes, but what you're teaching me here, it's very different. What you're creating awareness in me about conflict and how I deal with conflict is very different." And all of a sudden, I realized that I had developed a methodology, and I said, "Well, I think that if this will serve to create a book in order to leave that legacy, so that people will learn from this book, and and the book will always be there, right? It will help so many generations." So I decided that I was thinking about writing a book, and I was thinking about a title, and all of a sudden I realized that there was this conflict intelligence, and I thought this will be a very good title, because a lot of people that I talk to, I noticed that they're afraid of conflict. I noticed that it is the first or the second one, public speaking and dealing with conflict in anywhere in their life. And I said, and I need to change that, because conflict, if known how to deal with it correctly, you can transform it, and it can be a catalyst. It can be something very good, especially for organizations. You don't want the emotional conflict in the workplace, because that can be extremely toxic, but you want the cognitive conflict, right? You want that type of conflict that people get together, they try to figure it out, they brainstorm, they now the word it's called dump storm, right? They dump ideas and they try to figure it out without accusing people, right? So with that in mind, the word conflict intelligence came to me. And the other reason that I thought that it would be very good is because while I was working with professionals and I was testing them in emotional intelligence, there were a lot of these people that, although that they were pretty good in emotional intelligence, they still fear conflict. They still fear having those difficult conversations when giving evaluations, feedback, or talking to other people, or just actually dealing with the energy of conflict. So that is how the book came about, and it has a little bit of the, not only about the methodology, but also it offers an opportunity to see why is it so important to address these in the workplace, to bring leaders that are capable of leaning into conflict and not being afraid of it. And what is it that the companies can save in money, right? In bottom line, when they address these situations in the workplace, instead of letting them linger for a long time.
Yeah, dealing with conflict is not always easy, and if you haven't got the skills to do it, it can often end up in a disastrous situation where there's
Exactly.
anger, there's misunderstanding, there's so many things that can go wrong if conflict's not dealt with correctly. So what steps might a business leader take to deal with conflict? I mean, it might not only be conflict with a staff member or team member, but it might also be conflict with a supplier or
Yes.
someone else. So, what are some of the steps that they could start with learning to better manage the conflict with whomever is the other person?
Yes, and just to give you a brief, what are the type of organizations that I have worked with? I have worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, because again, well-meaning people get together to work in organizations, and then all of a sudden, they're not seeing eye to eye. It could be executive directors, right? Executive directors in an organization, C-suite people that are working all together that don't see eye to eye, and a lot of companies have gone away or have closed because partners don't get along. They figure it out a way how to divide the assets, the investments, the money. They go out and redact a legal contract of how they're going to work together, but they never figure it out an MOU of how is it that they will work together when things don't go well. The same thing happens in regular relationships, right? In marriages and all of that. But my area of specialty is in the workplace, but it happens everywhere. So, with that, I think that one of the things that, conflict resolution, there's so much to teach. With this book, I discovered that after I finished up the book, I started developing a lot of modules on teaching conflict resolution, conflict intelligence, how to take someone from being afraid of dealing with conflict all the way to a space where they become it. They become conflict intelligence. They don't fear conflict. I don't necessarily just teach you skills or a methodology that will only fit for certain things. I want to equip you to not only create certain awareness, also help you to retool your brain, but also do some behavioral modification in order for you to feel comfortable dealing with any conflict that comes your way. That is what I'm interested on teaching here. Not just one tool here and there that it will help you. Conflict intelligence is not just one skill, it's a meta skill. You have to learn so many things in order to become that leader that feels comfortable with conflict, right? You have to learn how to be a good listener. And we're talking about being a good listener, what does that mean? Is listening with your entire body, right? That's why we have two ears and one mouth. You listen more than talk in order to be able to understand somebody else. You have to also develop empathy and how to use empathy in order to be able to create collaborative processes, in order to be able to understand people's positions and try to negotiate things in areas of understanding of where they can work together instead of just holding on to certain positions to go into interest space more, right? What else? I can give you a whole list of other skills that are important in order to you to become a conflict intelligent person.
Yep, that would be lovely if you could share some of the other skills that are necessary. I mean, I know that listening is one of the most important ones, because if you're not listening, I mean, you can hear someone's conversation, but you really need to listen to what's being said between the lines, so to speak, so that you can understand and using you repeat back what, if you don't understand something, repeat back their words, because you may, as the receiver, misunderstand what they've said.
Yes, and listening skills, it's reflecting, reframing, right? There's so many ways of how to have these conversations and making sure that the other person is being heard, right? Also, you're not listening just with the ears, you're listening with your entire body. It's how do you maneuver your thought process in order not even to judge people when you're listening, because we're interesting beings. We know when somebody's judging us, right? We can feel it energetically. So how can you be in a state of neutrality from here in order to be able to be there for the other person? I don't know if you have ever heard about Eckhart Tolle from the book The Power of Now.
Yes, I have heard of him. Yes.
He, in one of his chapters, he talks about an experience that he had with somebody that just came, a neighbor that came and visited him, that she was dealing with a lot of conflict in her life. And just the fact that he was so present to listen to her, that person felt healed. Imagine, we have that power that if we're fully present and we're there for other people, we're able to heal, right? So if we can do that, in the workplace, instead of judging people, instead of trying to figure out what to say before you listen to what they have to do, we will be in spaces in where creativity is embraced. and where creativity will be flourish. We will have great products, great services in organizations. We would have people that enjoy working for these organizations instead of people running away, right? We have throughout the entire world dealing with people that don't want to continue going and working in organizations. They prefer to work remotely at home. They prefer to change from jobs. They don't seek the ladder status of a career, because they realize now, with everything that we have been dealing with, that perhaps being more important to them is their health, and being an organization in where they're not well treated, and where they don't feel inclusive, where they don't feel they belong. They don't want, people are not in a state of mind no more to be in jobs or in businesses that treat people like that.
No,
So it
they're
is
not.
it is important for organizational leaders to realize that humanity has transformed. Therefore, we expect better things from our leaders. We expect better things from our organizations in order for people to come and work for you. And even though that people work in an online, arena, still people don't like to work in organizations that are not being treated well. They still experience the same stress, the same psychological effects whenever they have to go into a Zoom meeting with people that they don't like in the workplace, or that they feel attacked, or they feel that they're being bullied, right? So that has not really changed, even though that we're working in an online world. People still have those experiences. But then now, with everything changing so dramatically, now people are seeing that there's options, that there's so many companies that are working remotely that they can change jobs very, very fast now.
Yeah.
And that is something that leaders need to take in consideration, that these soft skill, that they used to call it soft skill, and that they used to don't want to name that conflict was in the workplace, because they were very good at hiding it through HR, through legal counsel. They will hide the conflict. That's something that it cannot be done anymore.
No, I
It
totally
has to
agree
be
with that.
addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think the world's changed in the last 3 years. I think,
Yes.
we've been forced to change the way we actually interact and deal with people, because yeah, you're right. People won't stay at a job any longer just because, it's a good job. But if they're not feeling valued, they're not feeling heard, then they won't stay, and they'll go and find someone else who will treat them with the respect they deserve.
And you don't know how many people I have worked with that have decided to retire even earlier, just because they cannot no longer deal with the workplace, bullies, with the toxic environment. Their own health has deteriorated to a level that they're willing to leave money on the table and just retire. Just today, I was just talking with someone that not only this person is choosing or feeling that she's being forced to retire, but even to leave the state where she lives in order to be able to afford to live with a retirement.
That's
These are
drastic.
is drastic. It's life changing. I went to my own experience of that, and where I had to leave an organization that I was working with for a long time. I had to, I have to even change from the place where I was living in order to find other opportunities. But every single time that I was dealing with all these stressors, I would always say to myself, I am dealing with this because I want to become an expert in this field. And if I don't experience these things, how will I be able to help people, or how will I be able to influence leaders? That these is very important to be taken in consideration in the workplace.
Yeah. And one of the skills I think that people need to develop a little bit more is their empathy. I think that
is developing. I think through what's happened in the last 3 years. However, I think it could be developed a heap more, because honestly, being empathetic with with someone else's issues, problems, whatever, because we've had to deal with a lot, and mental health issues have arisen because of the pandemic and what's ensued since then. And becoming more empathetic, because sometimes you just can't get to work because you're feeling unwell, and I think employers need to embrace a more diverse culture in their workplaces, and allow people to work remotely when it's when it can be done, because and we're starting here the 4-day work week. A number of companies are starting a 4-day work week, and still being paid the same amount of money. So I think that's another thing that employers could look at, is less hour or less work days, but still getting the same amount of production out of the staff members or team members.
Yes, and I think that could be a part of the solution, because with everything that we have been dealing with, this has been worldwide. We have gone through a lot of change management. When you go through so much change and so drastically, we were in a space in where the narrative of the politics and the pandemic was constantly changing and fear everywhere, right? We are in a society in where people have trauma. All this change and all that we have been dealing with, the political instability, the racial justice movement, pandemic, all of that created trauma in everyone. And we need to be in a position of healing. And companies, unfortunately, when before the emotions were left on the side, when personal life, you don't bring it into the workplace, they cannot longer avoid that.
Absolutely
right?
not. No, they have to accept the fact that people do have issues and problems and traumas and all sorts of things, and leaders need to be more accepting of those things, rather than being so steadfast and ignorant to what's going on around them.
Yeah, and everything around a business it revolves humans. And even though that we have the technology and we have robots now, still everything revolves around humans. If a business is going to grow, is because of humans. So you have to see the humans in the workplace as your main capital. And if you don't invest in it, and if you don't take care of it, your company is not going to do well. Yes, there has been companies that have been doing well, even though that they would treat people bad. But in the downside of the economic, only the companies that were treating their employees with dignity and respect were the ones that flourish, because those same employees that you were treating right were so loyal, they will bend and they will do whatever it could be in order to preserve the team, in order to work with them, in order to reduce part of their hours, in order to make sure that everybody stays together and work together. And those are the companies that flourished in the last recession.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And the Great Resignation, happened after the pandemic. People used to stay in their jobs regardless, but there was this, people were just leaving their jobs because they worked out that they could be treated better at some other organisations, and the organisations that were losing their staff members, didn't understand the reasoning behind, this Great Resignation. But if they had to really look deep into their policies, procedures, and work ethics and practices, they would have worked it out and stop the great rush of people leaving.
Exactly, and not looking at the systematic problem of the organization, right? Because there are systematic problems in organizations that if they're not addressed, it's going to affect everyone. And if they don't address that and they don't figure it out that, the way you treat employees, it is important, right? People don't leave good organization, they leave bad bosses.
Yes.
And I see it over and over and over and over again. Yes, people say, okay, I was treated wrong. I don't think that this is going to work for me, but maybe I'll see and look for another opportunity. And they go out and they have better opportunities. But at the same time, it is because they left an organization that was not treating them well. They were not feeling respected. And they felt that they didn't belong. So therefore, they have to leave, right? And the companies now, they have to hire a new person. How much does it cost to hire a new person, bringing them on board, the time, the months that it takes for that person to really, the learning curve that they have to go through. The companies literally are leaking a lot of the bottom line. And they think that HR is the solution. HR does not deal with maneuvering the conflict in ways in where people will feel comfortable to talk, to work things out. Because unfortunately, HR, it's been seen that they side with management, they side with the company. Therefore, employees, they don't trust HR, right? I want to change that. I want to teach HR conflict resolution skills in order for them to be able to work with the employees and be able to figure things out so that people be respected, and I'm trying to do that through the universities by teaching courses in conflict resolution as well to HR.
Yeah, it certainly needs changing, because you're right, there is no trust between HR and employees, because you're right. It's seen that HR takes management side, and there's no room for the team member to maneuver themselves. I've been through that, where I had a lot of conflict in the workplace, went to HR, nothing was ever done, and I ended up leaving that organisation that I absolutely loved. But yeah, I just, from my mental health, I had to leave, just because I was too stressed out all the time.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I hear it over and over and over again. I went through it myself, going to HR, they will not do anything with regards. They will side from management, and the problem, you become the problem, not the other person,
Absolutely,
right? Because they feel they can get rid of somebody in the lower tiers than the higher tiers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yvette, where can people find your book if they want to purchase it?
Thank you. It's in Amazon.com, and either you can put Yvette Durazo or conflict intelligence quotient, the missing piece to turbocharge leaders and organizational emotional intelligence.
Wonderful. And where can people find you if they want to work with you?
It's the website is unitivconsulting.com, or they can Google my name and it would also take you to my website, Yvette Durazo.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yvette, if you were to provide some sort of wisdom or some quote or something to our audience, what would that be?
Well, I love the quote from Albert Einstein, which is one of the quotes that I use the most to develop my book, that you can never solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that it was created. You have to find ways whenever you are in a conflicted situation or you're in conflict with other people, you have to find ways in order to change your views about the situation, your perception about things, so that you can unlock and open up spaces of creativity in order to be able to resolve situations from a different angle. You know, the other saying is, what is it? The other saying is, if you're trying the same thing, expecting a different result, it's a level of insanity, right? And also in the book, I talk about Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a famous therapist in the 1930s, right? Or something around that time. And he would say that the person that was sitting across from him was always individuals that were never able to resolve their conflicts that they had with people.
Absolutely. I love that. It was more, I think it's truer now than it was then. And he was a very perceptive man, Carl Jung. So yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yvette, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.